that the recording is now on, and we'll be admitting people as they show up in the waiting room, and everybody gets muted upon entry. Nothing personal, but that's how we do it. This is the Thomas Berry Forum for Ecological Dialogue, which is also part of the Degnan Institute for Earth and Spirit at Iona University. I'm Brother Kevin. I'm the director of the Berry Forum, and I'm very happy to be here tonight to welcome everybody. Those of you who are familiar with our routine or know the drill, I think you're familiar with each other even at this point, which is a lovely thing. And at this time, I'm going to move things along and let you know we have very special guests tonight, although my suspicion is you already know that. Because of some of the folks who are here, we can tell why they're here. Kathleen, would you like to take things now?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Well, good evening, everyone. We do have a lovely evening in store for us. This is the culmination of Dr. Mary Evelyn Tucker's visiting professorship to the Degnan Institute for Earth and Spirit. We've had the joy of her presence for the past semester and have really had the blessing for our students to be able to encounter her, to encounter the work that she has done with her extraordinary partner, John Grimm, who we are so thrilled is here with us tonight. These are two of the most exceptional people that this universe has birthed. And all of us who know them know that this is not hyperbole at all. And so this evening, we wanted to give all of our friends in the Berry Forum Contemplative Ecologists Circle, this little community that we have become, we wanted to give us all the joy and the benefit of their word and their presence tonight. So I'd like to turn us over to Dr. James Robinson, who will introduce Mary Evelyn and John.
Thank you, Sister Kathleen. So Dr. Mary Evelyn Tucker and Dr. John Grimm are an incredibly dynamic, generative, and generous duo. And this brief bio just gives a glimpse of their countless contributions to the realization of what their beloved teacher Thomas Berry refers to as the great work. Mary Evelyn and John are co-founders and co-directors of the Forum on Religion and Ecology at Yale University, where they teach, research, write, and mentor. Together, they served as editors of the World Religions and Ecology series from the Harvard Center for the Study of World Religions. They are executive producers of the Emmy Award-winning film Journey of the Universe. Their words, their witness, and their wisdom are woven throughout the curriculum at Iona, including in classes such as Religion in the Natural World and Story of the Universe. So let's all warmly welcome Mary Evelyn and John into this circle tonight.
Oh, lovely.
Thank you so much. Lovely to see you all. You're going to put the, yeah.
Good.
We're going to share screen here. And while John's doing that, I just want to say deep, deep thanks. Yeah, good. Deep, deep thanks to all of our friends at Iona, some of whom we shared time with at Fordham with Thomas Berry, including Brian Brown, Kathleen Degnan, Danny Martin, and then at Iona, we met up with Kevin Cawley and our Teilhard friends, Jane Ann McPartland, and Deep College of New Rochelle friends, Terry Epridge, and I see Peter Blaise Corcoran from Earth Charter work, and Beth Blissman, and so many others. I know I'm missing lots, but it's just a joy to see these faces and to know we've been on a long journey together, haven't we?
Mm.
And so some of this will be quite familiar to you, and we hope it's a weave, though, that will make some sense in terms of our times, our moments, the COP conference, and all the things that we're facing. John, would you like to make some opening comments?
It's wonderful to be here. Of course, Mary Evelyn was the lead tonight, and as we all know, Mary Evelyn can be a trickster sometimes, so I've been invited to keep tabs on her and help the program a bit, to say a few words. It's really delightful to be with you all.
To advance. Okay. Are you in the biggest screen possible?
Not really. I think I'm looking for that larger screen, and I might
Mm. I think you can. Over there.
just a moment, everybody. I'm going to take the opportunity to.
John, I think if you start your slideshow, you will be
Oh,
the big
go
screen.
into the big one. The
Yeah.
big screen. Okay.
Mhm.
Is that the one? No.
Well, it's getting ever more. I think I've lost control of this screen here.
Let's see.
Just go to your own screen because we're no longer sharing the screen. Just go to your own program and start the slideshow. And then what we'll do is we'll screen share again.
Okay. Kate, can you say that again? I should
Go to
leave.
screen share.
Go to screen share.
Share screen. Now you got to find the program.
Find your program and start your slideshow.
Oh, no.
And then we'll screen share.
Mm-hmm. I think I might have to leave and come back again.
Yeah, we might have to go out. Sorry.
Kathleen, it looks like we're viewing your screen,
Yes.
and you'll need to stop sharing your screen for them to be able to share theirs.
Thank you. I didn't know that I was screen sharing. Let's see.
You find your program though?
This is why every new Zoom account should come
Yeah.
along with a millennial.
Absolutely. We have one. We have our James Robinson with us now.
Go to view options, maybe. No.
You are viewing Kathleen Degnan's screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Jim, can you take that out or?
Let's see.
When we come back to our screen, I can screen share.
Mhm.
I don't know why we're screen sharing mine.
Yeah,
Does anybody know?
you have to go off of your screen share, Kathleen. I think you stop your screen share.
Yes, I'm trying to do.
Kathleen, if you go up to the top, when you put your cursor up at the top, and it'll say stop sharing.
You are now. I'm sorry. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. All right.
Emmy, the whole point was to do.
Bigger, but she said
Yes.
once we started it, it would go bigger. I don't know. Okay.
If you bring up your program, you
Yeah,
can.
there we go.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Sorry. Okay, so we are going to be defining eco-spirituality and eco-justice, the origins of our religion and ecology project with Thomas Berry, with the Pope's encyclical inspiration, Indigenous Religions and Ecology, and Journey. Most of this will be familiar to you, but we're defining eco-spirituality as an appreciation for the sacred universe out of which Earth evolved, valuing the complexity of Earth and the interdependence of all life systems, a realization that human life emerged from the universe and Earth, and thus we are responsible for the continuity of the Earth community. Now,
Can you-
ecological justice.
Oops, can you screen share with us so we see your?
Oh,
I did actually, but
maybe not then. Oh dear. Here it is again. No. You
hmm.
pull it up, I think. You have to got to go to screen share at the bottom.
Isn't that something to
Down here at the bottom, it should be somewhere.
no, we seem to be
Go out of it. Go.
out of the, here it is.
Yeah, there you are.
Isn't that interesting? It isn't up on screen share.
Then maybe you
If-
could reflect
if-
from your slides and talk to us.
If John hasn't been made host or co-host, he can't share a screen.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
So whoever's the host of the whole event has to create John at least as a co-host to share the screen.
John has been co-host since 7 o'clock.
Okay, well, I'm just saying.
And it did work initially, and
Okay. Mhm.
for some reason, it has stopped working.
He's still.
Want me to knock you off co-host and put you back in, John?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes,
That might be a trick to try.
we
So
might
I'm
leave and come back.
withdrawing you as co-host.
There's always a ghost in the machine. So anyway,
Now you're just a guest, so we're going to make you a co-host again.
And Betsy says that it helps to share the screen first and then run the PowerPoint.
Yes, of course.
There it is.
There it is.
Okay.
That should do it. And the issue,
start
we
moving
wanted to eliminate the
Just
side,
let
but
it go.
yeah.
You just want to go up to the top where it says slideshow.
Yeah.
Move over from home to slideshow, up even higher where it says slideshow, all the way up. Yep, right there. And play from the start.
No, we don't want that. Play from start. Here from here, over here. Play from start. There we go.
Marvelous.
Thank you.
All right, so sorry. The lesson is we're powerless and pointless. Okay, now we need to go forward, John. Whoops. Oh dear.
That's a
It's
really
not going forward.
amazing.
Okay, I think we might just have to give some comments.
Here you are.
There
Okay,
you go. Try it now.
okay. So we're defining eco-spirituality and eco-justice and the origins of our religion and ecology project with Thomas Berry, and then the inspiration of Laudato Si, Indigenous Traditions and Ecology, and Journey of the Universe. So eco-spirituality is an appreciation for the sacred universe out of which Earth evolved, valuing the complexity of Earth and the interdependence of all life systems. It's a realization that human life emerged from the universe and Earth, and thus we are responsible for the continuity of the Earth community. Ecological justice includes social justice and sustainable use of natural resources. It implies seeing nature as intrinsically valuable and a source of human well-being. Environmental justice is the response to the unfair exposure of minorities, the poor, and people of color to pollution of air, water, and soil due to extractive industries. Now, one of the founders and fathers of environmental justice was Robert Bullard. And this began during the civil rights movement. And our work comes out of this, which is something we haven't really had a chance to talk about. But the notion that separate but equal was morally acceptable in this country until religious leaders and laity raised their voices was deeply influential on me when I went to college in Washington, D.C., and was participating in the civil rights movement and the anti-Vietnam War movement, that moral leaders and moral justice had force. And that's the same thing we feel for the environment. Now, you probably know Reverend William Barber, who's one of the heads of the Poor People's Campaign. And again, when I was in college at Trinity, the Poor People's Campaign was initiated by Martin Luther King and John Lewis and many others. And Barber has taken this forward in extraordinary ways. Now, eco-justice and well-being means clearly that humans and nature are interconnected, that the destruction of healthy ecosystems, of forests, of fisheries, of rivers and wetlands results in tremendous human suffering from pollution and climate change disasters such as floods, fires, and droughts. So examples from public health problems, the environmental justice movement began in Warren County in North Carolina with pollution that was being put into the roads there. And people started to protest. It was 60% African-American community. Flint, Michigan, we know the water issues. All of our cities have water issues. Jackson, Mississippi, the whole system. Cancer Alley in Louisiana with tremendous pollution for years and years. And the Anacostia River in DC, our nation's capital, was heavily polluted until recently. So expanding ethics then.
When we initiated the project on religion and ecology, we birthed it out of a concern for the relevance of our own discipline, the history of religions. And we knew from Thomas Berry's perspective that we have an ethics for homicide and suicide and even genocide, but not for biocide and ecocide. And what we realized is that as we explored the traditions of the religious communities on the planet, ethics will arise out of these perspectives. In my own field of studies, indigenous traditions, pictured here are Violet Medicine Horse and Adam Burden Ground. And I was sitting at table one day years ago in the 1980s when Violet said, "Let's have a picture." And we went outside and Adam and Violet talked among themselves and how should we present ourselves? And they wanted to be seen in the garb of the Native American church, peyote way. But these are also very traditional Crow families, the Burning Grounds and Medicine Horse. And so Crow ways of Vision Quest and Sundance and medicine bundles, they're also participate in their own tradition. They are also members in good standing at the local Baptist church. So their contemplative path is inclusive rather than perspectives that have developed in the West, especially of exclusive traditions. If you're Jewish, you can't be Muslim. Here we have traditions among indigenous people that welcome that sense of a contemplative path that one explores in their life. So my studies began in that exploration of their symbolic life, of the ritual life. And I began to realize very early on, this picture shows a Sundance camp. The lodge is, I'm taking this picture from the lodge area, and we're looking at where the camp of the Crow and their traditional Northern Plains teepee are cooking food. They're preparing for a major feast, the sense of the nurturing dimension of religion, while the Sundance ritual orients people, the people themselves in their lived experience, also embed these religious traditions. So the idea of lifeway developed in my thinking to speak about religion among indigenous peoples. And of course, that study continued with attention to the symbolic dimensions. And here's the lodge being built by the Crow people to celebrate that what they call in their own language Ashkise Lisua. We say in English Sundance. Ashkise means a large lodge, a cosmic lodge, and Lisua is to dance in that lodge. People have their shoes off, they're on the earth, feeling the earth and the energies of the earth rising up. The central tree and 12 fork trees on the outside will then be covered with shade trees all around. Dancers go into this lodge for 3, 4, or 5 days without food and water, and they undertake this suffering, this deprivation of their own bodies, so as to reach out to the spiritual presences to renew this region, to renew the biodiversity, to renew themselves as a people. This sense then of studying the symbolic life, you can see the buffalo on the head here, how they nurturing presence again of their traditional ways. This symbolic life was made very clear to me that the Crow also in all indigenous peoples search for their own sovereignty. So what some people might say is a political path of indigenous people is also a contemplative path. And one clear expression of that is the document, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, or UNDRIP, where one major statement in this document is that Native people deserve free, prior, and informed consent for decisions made about their homelands. So along with the ritual life, the symbolic life, this sense for the search for sovereignty, for justice among themselves.
And my own background in terms of this project was I went to Japan in 73, 74, very, very disillusioned with the 60s and Nixon's election. I said I wouldn't come back until after he got out of office, which fortunately worked out that way. And I traveled extensively through Asia. But here was Japan beginning to be more and more polluted, and they began to put their polluting industries in other parts of Asia. When I went to China in the mid-'80s, here was Guilin, and the water, and the air, the soil were fine, pre-industrial China, pre-industrial Asia. And now we know the waters are tremendously polluted. Many of the rivers don't even reach the Pacific Ocean. The soil, the air, the pollution in China, in Beijing especially, is horrendous. So I began to study at that time the religions of Japan. I was completely unprepared. We didn't have much in those days in colleges or universities. So I began with Buddhism, went frequently from the college where I was teaching to Kyoto, and spent a lot of time in the Zen gardens, and also met a Zen monk, and I did practice with him. I also became very interested in Confucianism, especially after I returned and met Thomas Berry and Ted DeBerry. But Confucianism is the tradition that's probably influenced more people on the planet than any other tradition. And it's got a tremendous sense of our effect on everything, concentric circles. As we cultivate ourselves, we interact with family, with society, with politics, with nature and the cosmos. So this is a school near the university where I taught, hugely influential across East Asia, where education is so deeply valued for moral and spiritual cultivation. Shinto, as you know, is the indigenous religion of Japan. The notion that the kami, or the gods, are in everything. This is near Hiroshima in Miyajima, a beautiful shrine there that protects the sacred and the secular. The inland sea is what's in the background. So everything is animate in Shinto, with kami, with alive, living spirits. Now, Asian eco-spiritual values then became so important to my understanding of other worldviews, the interdependence or interbeing of Buddhism that Brian Brown has gone into such depth with, Confucianism, this notion of qi as a unifying life force. We have a tremendous dualism in the West between body and spirit, mind and matter, and so on, but qi is matter energy, the notion that matter has a vitality about it. It's a tremendous idea, and of course has resonance in Qigong, Tai Chi, all the martial arts, but also the traditional Chinese medicine as a force for healing. And Shinto, as I've mentioned, is the sacredness of nature that is deeply valued. So the origins then of the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology came out of my concern and many other Asian scholars' concern of what would happen as China and India, the largest countries in the world, would industrialize and rapidly. And we could see the ecological destruction would be massive, and that we felt that there was a need for culturally grounded environmental ethics. It wouldn't be environmental ethics that would be Western-based or even Western philosophy. They had to be these nature-based religions of the Asian traditions, so culturally grounded. And we felt, as you understand, that of course there are problems and promise of religions. We're well aware of that, but 85% of the world's people identify as religious, and there's tremendous possibility, potential in this eco-spirituality and eco-justice combination. And even our Yale dean, Gus Speth, said, when he brought us here 17 years ago, he said, we have science, policy, law, economics, technology. All of these are necessary, but not sufficient. And we need a broader spiritual force. And he founded Natural Resources, NRDC. He founded the World Resources Institute. He was head of the UN Development Program. So he got that even at a secular institution like Yale, there should be this religion and ecology program, which was joint with the Divinity School and the School of the Environment. Now, we also love to think of a much broader understanding, of course, of religion. And here's Ronald Dworkin, a law professor at NYU, his definition. A religious attitude involves moral and cosmic convictions beyond simply a belief in God, that people have an innate, inescapable responsibility to make something valuable of their lives, and that the natural universe is gloriously and mysteriously wonderful. And this, of course, has an appeal to the next generation, to those who want a broader sense of religion.
In developing this project on world religions and ecology, we initiated at the Center for the Study of World Religions at Harvard a conference series which attended to 10 of these traditions, and we brought together scholars, environmental activists, and scientists related to these traditions. And basically it was a retrieval, reevaluation, reconstruction project, draw forward from the past, evaluate, and urge a tradition to reconstruct its understanding of itself. These conferences then produced these volumes, and it happened that Thomas Berry attended many of these conferences and the following culminating conferences that came after the attention to the conferences, to the religious traditions themselves. And you can see where indigenous traditions had a major focus, and the Western Abrahamic traditions, South Asian, East Asian traditions. So we were trying to reach out to find environmental perspectives for developing ethical thinking, contemplative action within these traditions. We had also a ecology and justice series at Orbis Press, and this attention to water and to issues of worldviews in the traditions, to feminism. You notice in the center, Leonardo Boff's Cry of the Earth and Cry of the Poor is in this series, and major influence on Laudato Si. So Thomas Berry's thought, there were a number of channels in which Thomas's thought came into the encyclical.
Thomas's influence on Leonardo.
Yes, his influence was at one conference that we remember, Thomas spoke very seriously and at length with Leonardo Boff that liberation of people was not sufficient in itself. They needed to have land, they needed to have relationships with their local region to nurture themselves and to foster life. And Leonardo got it, and this is where his attention to environmental issues began to take shape. So the development of the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology, and especially the website, which presents it as a field, an academic field, as well as a force of religious environmentalism to have traction in environmental activities. So the website has statements and scriptures, annotated bibliographies, and we're pleased now that there are over 17 graduate programs in the United States in religion and ecology. Just recently, Princeton Seminary added a program, in Baylor also. The environmental force is something we'll talk about as we go through these slides, but on the website itself, we now have Eco-Justice Hub, and even more recently than this slide was developed, we had to have sections on eco-anxiety now. And along with the Coursera, these online, massive open online courses, we hope to extend out this reach of the possibility of studying what traditions have to offer. I find it very interesting, of course, that Thomas Berry, he not only transmitted to us this understanding of the importance of the religious traditions for the understanding of their environmental perspectives, the ways in which individuals and communities had interacted with local regions. But many of us know how Thomas Berry's thought moved on into other areas too. So by the end of his life, he was thinking about earth jurisprudence and the sense of justice issues. So the amazing innovative character of his thinking that we tried to implement in some of the, and still trying to implement in our work. Thomas Berry and his understanding of the dream of the human is not simply the human species as itself, but the larger earth community of which we are part. And his sense then in his work, The Dream of the Earth, those essays try to capture how we rethink, reinvent ourselves at the species level. And the great work, Field and Force here. So we have Thomas Berry's work that contributes our understanding to these issues of religion and ecology. And Thomas himself explored the concept of eco-spirituality in many statements, but this one where he says at its core, even our human spirituality is earth-derived. The human and the earth are totally implicated, each in the other. If there is no spirituality in the earth, then there's no spirituality in ourselves. I think, again, where indigenous peoples, especially my time with Northern Plains and Great Lakes people, have made me aware of that spirituality in the earth. Thomas also went on to speak about the spiritual presence in all of reality, that sense that life itself opens possibilities to us. We can no longer hear, he says, the voice of the rivers, the mountains, or the sea. The trees and the meadows are no longer intimate modes of spirit presence. The world about us has become an it rather than a thou. So Thomas, understanding that the world is alive and speaking to us of its own journey through the universe emergence, and that we are open to hearing that voice if we move into this deep contemplative ecozoic age. The presence then of the next, trying to get the next slide going too. I think I've inadvertently by moving that. Yeah.
You go. You go.
There it is. Some of the key ideas of Thomas Berry that we've explored in our work is sacred universe, the sense of dwelling, is referencing back to Heidegger's thought, and this Thomas's understanding that philosophical concepts such as dwelling are embedded in the world around us, the sacred universe, and we live amongst a earth community. And his loving phrase that the universe and the earth is not simply a collection of objects, but a communion of subjects. So these phrases that are key ideas that hold such richness in his thinking, many of which are echoing Teilhard de Chardin's thought and earlier religious thinkers, and also looking ahead to the great work that has to be done to bring us forward into a flourishing future, or as he said, a ecozoic era.
So we've also been deeply influenced in the last 7 years or so by the Pope's encyclical, which I'm sure you all have been as well. And this cry of the earth, cry of the poor, of course, is so central to it. And that was one of Thomas's great contributions via Leonardo Boff. So as we know, this was the broadest invitation of any encyclical to date, over 2,000 years. So addressed to Catholics around the world, but to all Christians, to Orthodox and Protestant. And he has very good friends, as you know, with the Greek Orthodox Patriarch Bartholomew, and cites him from the very beginning of the encyclical. But as well, in addition to 2 billion Christians, people of all religions were invited into this encyclical message, and spiritual people and seekers. So the response of the world's religions has been so positive, very affirming. They've written their own statements of support for Laudato Si. These are up on our website. They want to work with the Laudato Si movement. And as you may know, a new film came out on the Feast of St. Francis called The Letter, which is a marvelous film, taking people from 5 continents and just documenting their story and their coming to the Vatican, and what they're suffering, what they're contributing, and how Laudato Si is so crucial to their life journey. So the response of environmentalists has been very positive as well, including even at our School of the Environment. Bill McKibben, the founder of 350.org, said when he came to Yale just after it was published, he says, this is the most important document of the 21st century, which is an extraordinary statement. And I think it's very true. As a young person, I used to say to my mother, if we have a pope who's lovable, authentic, and writes a cyclical on the environment, we will have a chance for a flourishing future. And I really believe that. Now, as we know, I'm just going to review this rather briefly, but the encyclical begins with science. It doesn't begin with the Bible or quotes. It begins with science. And he has all kinds of scientists that we know deeply involved in this encyclical. Now, the second one goes to this eco-spirituality, a gospel of creation, where he speaks of the mystery of the universe, the harmony of creation, interdependence of all life. He's inviting us to awe, to wonder, to beauty, for the action that needs to come forth. Now, the third chapter is on the human roots of the ecological crisis, and it is quite an indictment of the instrumental use of nature, that matter is not dead and just for our use. He is absolutely critical of massive consumerism and materialism and a culture of waste, as you know. And he says market-based solutions are not sufficient, especially something like economics with no limits. Herman Daly, the great limits to growth person and steady state economy, just passed away 2 weeks ago. And his ecological economics is central to this encyclical in certain ways. Now, integral ecology, chapter 4, is part of this eco-justice, that ecology, economics, equity, and ethics have to come together for action. Solidarity with poor and refugees, and intergenerational eco-justice. And of course, what you all are doing at Iona, and I want to give a big shout out to Jim Robinson, because the next chapters are about ecological education and ecological conversion. And that is what Jim and many of you are doing in your own universities as well. So climate action then for the religious communities means, of course, measuring one's carbon footprint. It means sponsoring and supporting alternative renewable energies in religious communities and elsewhere. Divestment from fossil fuels. And incidentally, Bill McKibben started that divestment movement about 12 years ago, and there are now over $40 trillion of divestment, and a third of that is from religious communities. They don't want their pensions wrapped up in destructive processes. And restoration processes are also happening with forests and rivers and cities, sponsored by and supported by religious communities. So a lot is happening. More still has to come, of course. The Glasgow conference last year, who were outside the conference hall? And here in Egypt, the same thing. It was the faith leaders, it was youth, and it was indigenous people. And these are the groups that are really making a difference in this huge shift that we're in the midst of.
So we consider examples from Laudato Si in the Christian tradition. We could draw on all of the religious traditions, but we wanted to and to emphasize indigenous peoples and what they bring to these discussions, and the sense that the sacred issue of the sacred universe, again, respecting Mother Earth, and this key theme of Earth community, and the understanding of all of life as related, and this kinship, this understanding of a deep, intimate relationship with the communion of subjects, with the differentiated sentience in the world of animals, bird, fish, and trees, the plants talking to human communities. So this involves indigenous people in their understanding of that great work that comes to them, a sense of rekindling relationality and transmitting it on to the next generations. So around the planet, we see indigenous peoples now coming to the fore, and their voice is being heard in these issues. And one woman especially, Robin Wall Kimmerer, and her work Braiding Sweetgrass begins to give us a clear understanding of this weaving of traditional environmental knowledge and scientific knowledge. And certainly they are not to be collapsed one into the other, but they are able to integrate components of each other into their understanding of the natural world. These ways of knowing then are activities, they're ways that inspire the protection of nature that we've seen in indigenous efforts to resist environmentally damaging projects. The consideration of Standing Rock in 2016, in which the Hunkpapa people in North Dakota, the Standing Rock Reservation, had a pipeline coming near the reservation, going underneath the Missouri River. And it was young people, young Hunkpapa, who initially brought forward this sense of protecting the water as a sacred kin relationship that was endangered by this pipe project. And so you can see the language that they're using, rather than simply a resistance to the pipeline, they were protecting water and defending the sacred. This activity then brought forth an incredible response from indigenous people, the largest gathering of indigenous people to date in this particular activity. And it has continued around the planet now. We see where indigenous people are standing up in many forums to find their voice, to lend their voice to recovering the relationships with the earth. The Vatican also had an Amazonian Synod in 2019, inviting indigenous elders and leaders to the Vatican, during which the Pope apologized for oppressive activities on the part of the church and sought to reopen that dialogue, to learn again, to have reciprocal relationships in which indigenous voice could be heard. So this comes to our work in Journey of the Universe.
Yeah, so our final section, again, I think many of you know and have seen Journey of the Universe, but it's important to note that Brian Swim, our colleague and collaborator on all of this, is indigenous from Salish peoples in British Columbia, even though he doesn't mention it often. But it's part of this weaving of traditional environmental knowledge and scientific knowledge that is the heart of Journey of the Universe in so many ways. And we worked for 10 years on this film and the book, and we worked with scientists, had conferences in Whidbey Island, making sure all the scientists were weighing in on every part of the astronomy and cosmology and geology and biology. So this epic story that Thomas Berry, of course, invited us all to tell, and the inspiration of Teilhard de Chardin is part of this long lineage of Journey of the Universe. Now, it's indebted, of course, to this new story of Berry that he wrote in 1978. It was an Emmy Award-winning film. There's a book from Yale Press. But I want to especially mention the podcast interviews that I did more than 10 years ago now with scientists and with environmentalists. And I believe our colleague and former student here at Yale, Sam King, is on, and he is our outreach coordinator for Journey of the Universe. And he is doing a remarkable project of new podcasts, new interviews with scientists, and working with some who know Jennifer Morgan and others we've introduced him to, but I urge you to watch these new podcasts or listen to them that Sam King is doing and showing Journey in many different places. He just showed us, again, a former student who's showing it down at Sacred Heart High School in Fairfield. And of course, we've got 3 classes on this on Coursera, including one on Thomas Berry. So there's been a wide appeal to next generation, to students, schools and universities and so on. A whole curriculum has been developed. And again, Sam King and his colleagues are developing yet another even more engaged, even more practice embodied version of Journey of the Universe curriculum. And when we showed this before COVID in Beijing at the Yale Beijing Center streaming, there were 77,000 people on this. Why? Because Confucianism and Taoism have this tremendous cosmological sense of how humans are the microcosm of the macrocosm of the universe. And we had about 4 or 5 Confucian scholars responding to this showing. And it was a very, very special event. So we built in the cosmologies of the world's religions without mentioning them overtly, or no mention of God. And I just want to say, as we are moving towards wrapping up here, an Episcopal bishop at Yale Divinity School, just after we showed it at the Divinity School 10 years ago, he said, "Where's God here?" And we said, on PBS, we could never use that kind of religious language, but we did another conference that some of you came to called Living Earth Community, and that was Christian responses to Journey of the Universe. And finally, I just want to say, you know, the eco-anxiety that is so high for all of us, but for many of our students in Next Gen, they have found this sense of belonging, of meaning and purpose in this new story that Teilhard and Thomas inspired us towards. So it's this cosmic and eco-spirituality that's an appreciation for the vast universe out of which Earth and life evolved and to which we belong. From the very flaring forth of the universe to the emergence of all the elements in the supernova of stars, to the explosion of galaxies and their remarkable complexity and beauty, to this beautiful picture of a dear friend in central Pennsylvania of the solar system that we are living in and the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy that surrounds us and gives us such inspiration. So this evokes in us
a sense of reverence, respect, and responsibility, and reverence in our relationship with the earth as the most immediate experience of the universe. It opens our presence to valuing the complexity of Earth's ecological interdependence of all life systems. We see, as the lunar eclipse occurs, awe and wonder emerging, even as the world turns and the moon turns. With every sunrise, we feel this contemplative engagement with the profound Earth community, this sense of a glorious and beautiful world that ennobles us even as we turn towards it for our own understanding of ourselves.
So respecting all life is a realization that we are connected and have emerged here on Earth after billions of years of evolution. Again, we're just beginning to understand this. And Jennifer Morgan's Deep Time Journey Network is helping many people to engage in this imaginatively and practically. So this picture changed so many of us in 1968, Christmas Eve, that beautiful blue-green planet from the blackness of space. And all of a sudden, we knew how precious this life is, this water planet. So the responsibility for the future of life, for the care and continuity of the living community, Earth community, is ours. From its magnificent mountains to its glorious rainforests, to its pure rivers, to fish and coral reefs, to birds and their immense beauty and migrating patterns, to humans on every continent, and to the next generations waiting waiting for our intergenerational handshake.
So this work has made us very aware that all of the traditions are orienting us to cosmos,
And grounding us in Earth's living systems.
nurturing us with water, air, and food.
And transforming us with the energy for action. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we hope there'll be some time for discussion, but may your work flourish as well. Deep gratitude to all of you.
Gratitude.
Thank you, and thank you, John and Mary Evelyn. I don't know if it's possible to have a spiritual experience on Zoom, but I think it just happened. And I thank you very much for making it all real. We certainly want to make sure we mention that Mary Evelyn has been the visiting scholar this semester at Iona University in the Berry Forum and the Degnan Institute. And I am thrilled to be here at sort of the conclusion of that experience for most of us, and to say thank you again for what you brought and what you bring to the university and to all of us. I'm going to let Kathleen have a few words now, and then she'll direct us for our conversation, and maybe James will also be joining us. So Kathleen first, and then James.
I simply add my accolade to that wonderful, wonderful presentation. And I'm sure that it's moved each of us so much. And we might also want to just add to the extraordinary, I think, upwelling of wisdom and insight that's come to us this evening. And so let us do that. You can see that at the bottom of your screen, there's a little reaction button, and you can raise your hand so that James or I could see you and recognize you. James.
Yes, thank you so much, Mary Evelyn and John. And I'm really looking forward to getting a vibrant dialogue going. I think one theme that I'm especially resonating with is that notion of ecological conversion that Francis invites us into so powerfully in Laudato Si. And just thinking about that word conversion, right, in its Latin roots, literally meaning to turn around, right, to catch ourselves going down a certain path, to stop, to pause, to open up into, John, that contemplative space that you kept referring to contemplate, to reroot ourselves as Adam in Adama, as humans in humus, to reground ourselves, and then to reorient ourselves to a more just and sustainable future. This is the great work, and I think we all do it together. We all make this conversion, this turning, this reorienting together. As Francis points out in Laudato Si, it's got to be a community conversion. And here we are as a community making that conversion together.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. There's a beautiful line in Laudato Si about ecological conversion where he's very poetic, and he's speaking of like the mist that comes underneath the door and begins to influence us, like this water refreshing. He's got beautiful poetic images, but you're so right to call out ecological conversion. It's an amazing idea and a beautiful chapter.
Yes. Since Thomas also, by the end of his life, as Brian Brown has helped us to understand too, Thomas's attention to earth jurisprudence, that turning, Thomas came to a realization that law itself, we couldn't simply implement it in law without this deep turning, also a reconsideration of our legal systems. And I think part of his understanding here was the mutuality of that contemplative act, that the earth was also turning to us as we were turning to the earth. It is turning to us. The earth is trying to awaken us, even with all of our climactic crises to a deeper understanding of this relationship.
Mm. And I'm just aware this evening, as we're speaking and as we've fallen into poetry, that we have tonight the 4 conveners, original conveners of this Berry Forum, and we have our own poet in residence, as we have our wonderful Berry and scholar in residence, Brian, but we have our poet in residence, Danny Martin, who's helped us really bring the celebratory energies, and also to bring the energies of the word that announces that we need a new language, as we need a new religion, as we need so many new iterations of what the cultural offerings of the human species have been. So I just wanted to say that and greet everybody, and just to remind folks that, you know, the Berry Forum came to be on the way home from Father Thomas's funeral and burial in Vermont, as we drove home and said to each other, we cannot let this man die. We cannot let this voice or this wisdom die. And so this is simply one way to continue the Berry Kaya, the Berry body universe. So what's moving, friends? What's bringing up in you as something you want to treasure? And
Danny, see you there.
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, Mary Evelyn and John, all of us, and I know Thomas, proud of the way you're doing the great work. It's amazing. What you shared with us is the work of a lifetime, and you should feel such pride in the best sense of that, because we join with you in it.
Mm.
I just want to add one little piece, that building on what Jim was saying about conversion. I was always taken by Bernard Lonergan, who talked about conversion as beginning with experience, and then it goes to understanding and decision. But you speak of the awe, and I love that. And I think that's probably where I've always been drawn in through the poetry of Thomas Berry and yourselves and all our colleagues here. Lonergan would talk about falling in love with the mysterious purposes of the universe. And you can't reason yourself into falling in love. People in love haven't reasoned themselves. But for us to create the conditions where we can taste that awe, and that's what you do as much as anything else. But I love the way you pulled it together. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Danny, and I'm so glad Kathleen mentioned our poet in residence and the joy that you give us both as bard with music and with words. And I couldn't agree more, especially now with all the crises, the poly crisis, as it's being called, to keep alive awe, wonder, beauty, complexity through poetry, the arts, and music. So thank you for what you're doing and others here as well. Absolutely critical.
Yes.
I don't know if there was some comments in the chat that we want to attend to.
Linda, I think you had your hand, if you could unmute. Linda, you have to unmute.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've never met Mary Evelyn in person, and certainly also I've never met John in person. And I live in Bellingham, Washington. And when you were speaking tonight, Mary Evelyn and John, your energy was vibrating through me in such a embodied, powerful sense. and it was an experience of the holy, as you spoke. And I just so deeply honor that you are able. I know Mary Evelyn is Catholic. I'm assuming you are, John.
Yes.
But you model Catholicity as Ilia Delia would have it modeled. Your scope of universal respect and engagement with world religions. It's I just think it is more powerful than can be put in words. So it seems like gratitude is wimpy, but that's what I can offer you from the core of my being.
Lovely, Linda.
Gratitude is what we all stand on. I think there's nothing like it. And again, I'm looking at Richard Jordan, an old-time friend from the Teilhard meeting, and Sam King. And when we look to the next generation with our students who we've been so blessed to have for 50 years, there's great hope in this. And I'd love, Sam, for you to just jump in maybe and have a comment on your role now with the outreach of Journey of the Universe.
Happy to. And Linda, I was very moved by your remarks and can speak very personally that Mary Evelyn and John have changed the course of my life through transmitting all of the wisdom that they have since I first met them at a program on Journey of the Universe at Wisdom House in the Berkshires. And the wisdom of Mary Evelyn, John, Thomas Berry, Teilhard has really, I think, ignited a new sense of orientation for my life and my passion for eco-spirituality and for environmental education. So I'm very blessed to be working as an environmental educator for a network of Marist schools and working as an outreach coordinator for the Journey of the Universe project. So I'm really excited about how the story of the universe can help ignite creativity, renewed sense of purpose and belonging, and animate this ecological conversion that Jim spoke to. And so exposing young people, exposing really anybody to this integral ecology approach, weaving together our interiority with the outer unfolding of the universe story, and seeing ourselves as participating in this wondrous story, I think has the power to really animate our environmental movements. So I'm really blessed to be on the shared journey with you all, and grateful to everybody at AONA for facilitating this amazing forum.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you,
That's really
Sam.
very beautifully put. And I want to pick up on your emphasis upon narrating, telling the story. And Linda, when you mentioned gratitude, that feeling of gratitude I find among Indigenous peoples and their understanding of a giving earth, so that narrating or telling a story is the realization that the stories themselves are alive and that they have their own time to be told. And telling them is our expression of gratitude, the human way of entering into larger stories. So it's through stories that we're connected into the giving of the earth itself. So thank you for your encouraging remarks.
Beautiful.
And I think there were some hands raised too. Thank you, Sam.
Richard, would you like to share? If you'd unmute.
Thanks, Kathleen, and thanks. Great to see Mary Evelyn and John. Just a quick mention that in my virtual teaching to students in China, 12-hour and now 13-hour time difference, I thought I would really be clever and bring in the universe story. However, my students beat me to the punch, and they are more articulate, more visionary, and are so hooked in that I could only play second fiddle and tell them all about the Berry Forum and eco-spirituality. But these students got it. They have it. They are amazing. So just to say that the great work is alive and well with youth in China. Thanks so much for a great evening.
Oh, thank you, Richard. You know, it's really true. The search for meaning is enormous. And as I say, the Confucian ecological civilization that's really growing. And the book was translated into Chinese and Korean and so on, and the film was as well. So, but thank you so much for that. And your comment is much appreciated.
Beth, would you like to unmute? Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Thank you, Kathleen. Hello, Mary Evelyn. So good to be with you this evening. I so enjoyed the trajectory of how you tell the story and go back and forth. It's almost like a beautiful theatrical, poem reading experience. Like I could see this at theaters in New York. So if you haven't thought of that, let's think off Broadway or who knows. Meet the right musical types. But I just wanted to share one of the things we're doing in the Loretto community, the community of which I'm a co-member, is we have a carbon reduction fund. And knowing that everyone is doing everything they can to reduce their carbon use first, if you find yourself traveling a lot by car or flying, I know several people that I know from different religious orders are over in Egypt right now at the climate talks. Catholic sisters have a huge presence there this year, which is fabulous. And you wish to offset your carbon in a way that you will be happy about, the Loretto community has a carbon reduction fund to which you can donate. And we use that fund to plant trees and use other carbon sucking, beautiful natural grasses and native plantings, as well as support education around that. I know there are probably other people who do that as well. And I invite you to put the info of other, carbon reduction funds that you trust into the chat. So we'll have a beautiful repository. And it occurs to me now, John and Mary Evelyn, I've been meaning to send this to y'all to put up on the website for a while. We started it right before the pandemic, so we're just kind of getting going now, but we're supporting, hopefully, we just got proposals for projects in Kenya and Tanzania.
Great. Great, that's fabulous. Just send it to us by email, okay? And we'll get it right up there on the website. Happy to do that. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. No critical comments here? Jane Ann, how about you? Would you like to enter the discussion a little?
Thank you, Mary Evelyn. This, I don't know if this is off topic, but there's someone that I've gotten to know through my meditation group, and he is a geologist. And the other day he gave a presentation. His career, he worked at Queens College, and his career was taking a rock and then grinding it down so that it was half the diameter of a hair. Looking at it under a microscope. And each rock has its own elements, and he was also asked to authenticate antiquar, like sculptures, to see how old the rocks were and everything. But he guided us to a site, and it's called Petrographic Thin Section Photos. And I went to it, and so you have a rock that you pick up and is gray, and then you go through these layers, and it becomes the most spectacular picture. Color. Each layer is a different color. And I immediately thought of Teilhard and how he talks about the energy of all matter.
Yeah.
And you see this hidden beauty. You talk about the earth and what the earth is telling us, that there's this hidden beauty that we have no idea about, but that when you go down into and I had no idea that this field even existed. He has spent his whole career doing this, and doing it in such a careful way, and then using that, what he learns to help identify and help artists and everything like that. But it really came back to just the wonder and beauty of our earth. It's at every single level. We just have to look around, and we're so blessed. And this is a time of Thanksgiving, and just the gratitude of being alive and on this beautiful, beautiful earth. And why can't we think of her and give her a priority? It's just so important.
The more we talk with one another in this understanding, Jane Ann, it's really a beautiful image that you've brought to us. In the years that we've been doing this project on religion and ecology, in our dialogue with the science community, the geologists have been the easiest of those scientific practitioners to talk with. And we've asked ourselves, why is it? Why the geologists? And the clearest answer that I can come up with is they, as you have said, Jane Ann, they see the world with such a loving gaze. It's their discipline that brings them into the inquiry. How did you come to be this way? And now you've brought us not only to the external vision of our eyes, but through technologies now to look deeper within. And this sense of the deeper vision of the quantum world that we know we are all participating in, the sense of earth community that Thomas Berry was talking about, and that we realize opens us to mystery. And the mystery of stones telling their story. Listening to you describe, Jane Ann, the granular character of the inner dimension of every rock, of every stone. It's telling its story in its patterning, in that subjectivity, its inner story. That's really marvelous. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just love to add that the Natural History Museum in New York opened up the Hall of Minerals a couple of years ago, which is explosively beautiful. And then we were giving talks in Pittsburgh over the summer, and the hall there in their Natural History Museum, the Carnegie Mellon, on minerals, absolutely stunning. And I think it's part of what both you, Jane Ann, and John are saying, the pull, the power, the awe that Danny's talking about, the sense that it's all living. It's not just life and biology and plants and trees and forests. It's all living, these rocks, these minerals, these mountains. And that's why qi, in the Chinese sense, is so important, because for them, jade is alive. Rocks are alive. And certainly for Native Americans. Anyway, what a beautiful example, Jane Ann, that you've brought in, and thank you. And I think two other people have their hands raised. Otherwise, we'd go on about rocks.
And also, I think Mary Necrato had her hand up as well. But hello, Peter Blaze.
Yes.
So wonderful to see you.
Great.
Thank you. Sorry, let me
come back.
Give you video. Can you hear me?
Wonderful. So good to see you.
Sorry, greetings from Queensland, Australia.
Oh my word.
Tomorrow morning. And abounding gratitude to Sister Kathleen and to you, John, and Mary Evelyn. This has been such a rich and generative hour. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate your bringing youth climate anxiety, or eco-anxiety, as you call it, to the discussion. It's such a rich and positive discussion, and yet youth are so deeply troubled. I don't know if people are familiar with the most recent study that's been done. That's a rather comprehensive study of youth attitudes in 10 nations around the world. It's a study of 10,000 students. And so it's a very interesting and comprehensive study, and it points to the sense of moral injury, lack of action by governments, and a sense of loss of future. It's so compelling and it's so important. And I think turning your work, which is so positive and full of awe and wonder, toward this problem of youth anxiety is such a positive way for us to share something with youth that can change their attitudes.
Yeah, Peter, thank you. I hope you'll send that reference, because as John mentioned, we have a whole section now on our website that's growing every day. Yale Divinity School has students who are studying for ministry in this area. It's really exploding. And Leslie seemed to be holding something up there. I don't know if it's related, but please send anything to us that we can put up on our website. So thank you, Peter, for that and for being with us. Wonderful.
The study was recently, it circulated unpublished for a while, but it's recently been published in the Lancet. So it's a very authoritative look. I'll send you the reference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Kathleen. What a joy to see you.
You too. You too, Peter Blaze. Thank you. Michael, would you like to offer your word?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mary Evelyn and John. I really appreciate your presentation. And you had asked the question in the beginning. Somebody's asking to control my camera, so go right ahead. Joanna, you be my guest. What moved through you? And I think the major thing that moves through me in the work that I may be doing right now is, or am doing, is, yes, the awe and wonder that leads to how we love our world. Okay, and love it as if it's our neighbor. Okay, and everyone and all the life within it, and love our neighbor as ourselves. And so, and that is something that I think there is a new movement that I'm becoming part of. There's a book written called The Church of the Wild, and there's a wild church network that's out there that's forming, and we're hopeful to have that being offered through, some of you may be familiar with the Franciscan Renewal Center in Scottsdale, Arizona, and so major retreat center here in the Valley. And so I just want to thank you for the way that you presented, as Jane was mentioned. I think it was Jane, maybe it was someone else. I apologize, but the energy that came through and the transmission of the sacred that's happening. Maybe Linda, I guess it was you. Okay, that that whole idea of how we experience the flow of the world that's trying to be communicated to us to save this particular world. And I'm partial to Cynthia Burchell's writings of the imaginal realm, but what is that? How does that connection take place in a way that we can really become conscious of it? Okay, in a new way. And then just ending with, I love Desjardins' quote: "Once we do begin to understand love," and I'm paraphrasing, "then we'll have the greatest discovery since fire." And I'm very hopeful that that will take place, maybe within, a time that's still soon enough for us to build that flourishing within the earth.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
It's such a powerful statement, and we all realize the time dimension may not be within our lives, that we have this larger realization, but we are moving it forward. We are part of that growing realization. And I'm reminded of how Thomas Berry had such an interesting insight in his association of authenticity and affectivity. And that's how I'm hearing your comments too, Michael, that sense of a love of the earth, the
Right.
intimacy with the earth that evokes from us a deep love relationship. And the authenticity that Thomas was pointing us toward was not to the exclusion, but not simply our inner psychological and not even our inner human spiritual realization, but ourselves, our deepest authenticity as part of the earth community,
Yes.
part of Earth's evolution. And that's a profound sense of authenticity I think it's still emerging in our times. And Thomas, I think, came to a realization that deep authenticity will bring us to the affection for the earth to move into this ecozoic era then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we respond to that deep longing, and because we do belong,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know, and so it's just extraordinary to me how important that is.
Thank you so
Beautiful.
much for your
Beautiful.
comment. And I have to put a footnote, forgive me, but John's comment back, authenticity and affectivity Thomas got from the Confucian tradition, which valued these virtues enormously. And Thomas has a beautiful article on authenticity in the book of Confucian Spirituality. So I recommend that highly to you. I noticed that Maria has just returned from a 10-day pilgrimage to Assisi, and she says how it plunged her into profound oneness with the earth community. I don't know, Maria, if you want to comment on that lovely entry into the chat, or if you're still with us. Maybe she had to go, but it's just lovely.
Yes.
But I think Mary had her hand up
Oh,
before.
good. Okay.
Please.
Thank you. Actually, I just wanted to offer a word of gratitude as someone new to this forum and even new to the realm of kind of a neophyte in eco spirituality. As I begin my position over at the Thomas Berry Place in Queens, I'm just really grateful for the way that you took so many of the concepts I've been reading about these last few months and just neatly intertwined them together in a not so intimidating way. So I just wanted to thank you all for that and say that I look forward to attending many more of these and deepening my understanding and my relationship, not only with the earth, but with the teaching. So thank you all for your efforts and energy. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Mary T. and Mary Tucker will be in touch.
So appreciate Mary. Thomas would say that isn't it a wonderful opportunity? We meet a few good friends along the way, and here we are tonight with a few of us gathering together in good friendship.
Yes, and Maria has just said that her computer doesn't have camera or microphone, but we send you love, Maria, and for all your work in Crow Country and Northern Cheyenne Country in Montana. Thank you.
I know that we are coming to our time, and so I'd like to offer the last word of our time in this forum. And if I just may say, I'm just moved and overwhelmed with Michael and John Grimm's remarks that, you know, this is a work of deep time. But what's happening in this forum, years that we've been gathering,
yes,
I think we've come to understand ourselves as one of those holding spaces. We are a womb for the emergence of a new kind of humankind. And we are doing the dreaming together that Father Thomas said, without which we will not make our way into the future. And so it's just an absolute joy to be together each month. And it's been a joy to have John and Mary Evelyn with us tonight. So James, will you bless us out?
Absolutely. I wonder actually if I could read a poem. This is by Joy Harjo, and it's called Remember. Joy Harjo, the indigenous poet and former poet laureate. And I teach this poem in all of my classes. And I do want to just thank you one more time, Mary Evelyn, for your presence on campus, which was so illuminating, so also just so kind. You spent so much time with particular Iona students, and I know that you moved them very deeply, just with the depth of your presence. So the breadth of your and John's work has been so expansive, but also that intimacy and that care and that kindness toward particular neighbors along the way really struck me, especially when you were at Iona. So thank you so much, seriously. This is Remember by Joy Harjo. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away to night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind, remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people and all people are you. Remember you are this universe and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is that life is. Remember.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much, Jim, Kathleen, Kevin, Brian, and Danny of your wonderful Dagnan and Barry forum. Thank you. What a pleasure to be with you all.
Brother Kevin, would you like to say goodnight to us as the director?
Thank you very much, all. And there's no comparison, I don't think, to anything that I've been with in terms of our own time together that's been as profoundly and deeply disturbing in a wonderful way compared to what we've just heard tonight. I have a prayer to finish up from the Iona Book of Prayers. Not because we have made peace this day, not because we have treated the other as ourself, not because we have walked the earth with reverence today, but because there is mercy, because there is grace, because your Spirit, Lord, has not been taken from us. We come, still thirsting for peace, still longing to love, still hungering for wholeness. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Amen, amen.
We'll say God bless and good night, but we'll not end the meeting. So you can say your farewells. What we'll do, though, is stop recording. You can speak freely. Thank you all and God bless.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks to John.
Everyone. Thanks, Kevin.
Grim.
Kathleen.
Thank you.